Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hip Senior Podcast, Book Edition. Today, we are here with Dr. Mary Newport. She is the author of The Coconut Oil and Low Carb Solution for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Other Diseases. Dr. Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. So, the Coconut Oil Low Carb Solution for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Other Diseases. Say that 5 times fast.
Right. I have a bad habit of long book titles.
So tell us a little bit about you, why you're qualified to write this book, and what the book's about.
Okay. I'm a physician. I'm a neonatologist, a newborn specialist, and I practiced for 30 years in newborn intensive care units in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. But my husband, Steve, had early onset Alzheimer's disease, beginning when he was about age 51. And he had a dramatic response when he was on the verge of severe Alzheimer's to ketogenic oils. This is coconut oil and MCT oil, which you will learn about in this book, what they are. Liver converts them to ketones. Ketones can be used as a fuel by the brain. In Alzheimer's, there's a problem with diabetes of the brain. There's a problem with getting glucose into cells to help the cells operate, but ketones can be used also by brain cells and could potentially help somebody with Alzheimer's and other conditions, Parkinson's and other conditions that share this problem of diabetes of the brain. Basically, my husband improved so much with these oils. It lasted nearly 4 years that he had a better quality life than the year before we started doing this. And I just had this compulsion to get the message out to as many people as possible. I knew that if he improved, other people would improve. And it was going to come out as a medical food. That's how I found out about the MCT oil part of this. I wrote this book actually as a companion to my first book. And
Which is called Alzheimer's disease, right?
Alzheimer's disease, What If There Was a Cure? The Story of Ketones. That one has much more about his story. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But this book I wrote as a companion. It's much shorter. It's much more to the point. It still covers the science, his story more briefly, but it launches into what you can do if you yourself are worried about this, or if you're taking care of somebody, have a loved one, a family member, a friend who is dealing with this, and basically how to incorporate these oils into your diet. And also this whole thing about diabetes. People who have diabetes have a 30% chance of developing dementia, including Alzheimer's, 30%, and only 5% of the average population does. So that's a 6th risk if you have diabetes. And it is possible to get diabetes under control and even reverse it, get off medications, get off insulin, if you eat less carbohydrate in the diet and add more fat to your diet. So that's what this book is about. It's about how to change out your diet in a reasonable way to reduce.
It's hard to go cold turkey, right?
Yeah. And
I'm trying to cut out sugar. I can attest to that.
Yeah, sugar is very addictive. And I didn't realize that myself until about 2006. I was in my 50s at that point. I'm 71 now. And I came to the realization from studies that were going on that nutrition had something to do with Alzheimer's disease. And so I started really researching it for my husband. And I found evidence that a Mediterranean whole food diet helps prolong life in people with Alzheimer's disease by up to 4 years. And so we completely revamped our diet then. And I feel Steve benefited from it. I have no idea. He kept progressing until we started the ketogenic oils. And then things turned around in the opposite direction, lasting almost 4 years. For me, I gained personal benefit as well. I've been overweight my entire life. I've been on a diet since I was 8 years old, and I managed to lose, and I've been able to keep off 60 pounds just by switching from a high carb diet. We were told to eat low fat for decades. And some people, we still hear that today. We should eat a low fat diet, stay away from saturated fats and all. But if you increase fat in the diet and greatly reduce the carbohydrate, for me, I stopped craving carbohydrate all the time. And I managed to lose weight. I started getting more exercise. It took me a couple of years to lose all of this weight. but I felt so much better and sleeping better. So many benefits from getting away from all the processed junk foods and eating more healthy whole foods. My husband and I both benefited from it. And I had written the first book. This happened to him in 2008. The first book that I wrote came out in 2011 that we'll talk about soon. And then this book was written as a companion to that and came out in 2015. And a lot has happened even since then. But this condenses the science and it teaches you how to eat a reasonable, low carbohydrate, higher fat diet and what diets are healthy.
Okay, so we've gone over like why you wrote the book. Who do you think are good people who should be reading this? Obviously, I think everyone should be reading it. Because I've always thought, for instance, and I'm not a doctor by far. I have zero medical training other than CPR, but I do a lot of research and I've always felt that like everybody should eat as if they have diabetes,
Yeah,
right?
that is
I've said that for years now and everyone thought I was crazy,
Yeah.
but apparently I'm right on.
Yeah. Now, I think that is a great take home message from this book. There is so much that you can do to prevent developing dementia and developing Alzheimer's, at least maybe slow down the progress, maybe delay it for a few years. For most people, this is at the end of their life. My husband, it was early onset. Some people develop it, they'll even have symptoms in their 30s already. But,
So if you're having any kind of memory problems
any kind of
or
memory
or
problem,
know anybody with stuff or whatever, those are all good candidates for this book.
yeah. And somebody that has Parkinson's,
In the family,
they may
runs in the family.
they may have tremors that does sometimes run in families, and people might develop a tremor. They might start getting stiff and they don't realize right away that Parkinson's disease. That's where they're headed. But it is possible to get a lot of the symptoms under control. And like I said, possibly delay the onset, slow down the progression, maybe prevent it altogether. And there are speakers at the Alzheimer's Association conference that are now saying that 30 to 40% of dementias are preventable through making good lifestyle choices, and diet is number one. When you think about in the 1950s, Crisco started coming in, margarines and all this stuff was trans fat. They didn't know how harmful it was at the time. And it substituted for what people had been using for 2 million years. The fats, animal fats, lard. People think lard, I would cook with lard, but that's what humans did for a couple million years when they were cooking and they were eating the animal. But anyway, in this book, you learn how to eat a lower carb diet. And it doesn't have to have a lot of meat or bacon or anything like that. People who are vegetarian and vegan can eat a low carb diet basically by concentrating on the carbohydrates that contain protein and eating more healthy fats in the diet. So there are many ways to do this. And this is a very reasonable approach to it. It's not a over the top ketogenic diet with a lot of bacon and
Right.
that kind of thing.
Okay. So people have finished reading your book, put
Mhm.
it down. What's the one thought that you hope they take away from this?
I think to recognize how important your diet, what you eat is, and how you're going to age and how your brain is going to age. I think that's the number one point. Getting away from the sugar, eating more healthy fats, eating a more whole food diet.
Okay. Dr. Mary Newport, thank you so much for talking about your book, The Coconut Well and Low Carb Solution for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Other Diseases. It's all right there. Go ahead and click the purchase button. Buy it for somebody who is dealing with maybe memory loss, people that are dealing with people that they're caregiving for, family members, people that you don't know. Just go buy a bunch of them and give them away. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mary Ann.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.